Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Lindsay. The union that represents thousands of rail workers across Canada is challenging the federal government's push to get railways running again. Canada's two largest railway companies locked out workers yesterday after failing to reach deals with Teamsters. The union has issued a 72-hour strike notice to CN Rail. CBC's Terry Reith has more on the dispute and those caught in the middle.
Just when it appeared to be ending, Canada's rail shutdown became far more complicated. Rather than abiding by the federal government's demand for binding arbitration, the Teamsters Union served strike notice on CN.
This strike continued as far as we are concerned. We notified the CN and CP of a strike notice, and we will use our constitutional right to fight the company here.
The union is also challenging the constitutionality of the minister's order. Caught in the middle, prairie farmers harvesting crops with no way of shipping them.
We are being held hostage because we got two groups, the union and the rail lines. I blame them both. They pick the worst time of year every time they try to do this stunt, and they come hoping that the farmers will plead and then something will be resolved, and it's getting ridiculous.
And it's not just farmers. Auto parts, lumber, chemicals and commodities all roll on the rails. $1 billion worth of goods every single day. So this disruption will have a serious impact on Canada's economy.
There's going to be a lot of disruption. Prices are going to increase. Freight has to move, and whether it moves by rail, or air or ocean or road, prices will go up.
CPKC says it's preparing to resume services in compliance with the federal government's order. CN said it restarted operations Friday morning.
So while we're focused on powering the economy and getting goods moving again, the Teamsters are focused on getting back to the picket lines and shutting everything down.
The union makes no apologies for prolonging the stoppage.
We understand there's going to be consequences, but the strike is a strike, and a lockout is a lockout. And keep in mind, the reason why we are here first is because they decided to put us on the street.
The Canada Industrial Relations Board is now hearing from all sides. With a CN strike notice due to take effect Monday, there appears to be little likelihood that Canada's rail system will be back to normal anytime soon. Terry Reith, CBC News, Edmonton.
The road to recovery from Jasper's devastating wildfire is closing in with the reopening of a major highway. Highway 93 North, also known as Icefields Parkway, is now open throughout the park as of this morning. CBC's Janet French shows us how the scenic highway looks today.
Highway 93 is finally open after a month of waiting. It was closed by the wildfire. Today we're going to take a drive down and see what it looks like. So we're right at the entrance, and obviously this looks pretty different. Most of Becker's was still standing. I believe they lost a couple of cabins in the fire. Sorry, I'm still speechless. There's, on the other side of the Athabasca River, it is just completely incinerated. I think this was the Park Gate hut. So Highway 93 is now officially open from Jasper all the way down through Lake Louise and Banff. This is going to be welcome news for people in the tourism industry and for tourists because now they can move through this area and hopefully begin to return a little bit to normal. But the destruction is vast, and I think it will be difficult for a lot of people to see. Janet French, CBC News, in Jasper National Park.
Stopping on the highway is not allowed. Safety assessments on burned trees still needs to be done. There's also a small update on temporary housing for Jasper residents. A plan is in the works that will be released in the next couple of days. Well, new restrictions are coming for flavored nicotine pouches. As of next week, it will be illegal for them to be sold anywhere but from behind a pharmacy counter. Marina von Stackelberg explains the new rules and the reasoning behind them.
Okay, one green and one purple.
In a matter of days, nicotine pouches will be pulled from gas stations and convenience store shelves. Fruity flavors will be completely recalled. Only mint will be available if you ask a pharmacist for it.
How come they look like candy? I don't think so.
But inside this container are tiny pouches placed between your gum and cheek. Doctors say they release the nicotine equivalent of smoking 3 to 4 cigarettes. Anti-tobacco organizations have been calling for a crackdown for nearly a year. They say the pouch flavors and bright packages do resemble candy, and teens are using them.
It has been so deeply disturbing to see so many young people becoming addicted to these nicotine pouches who've never had any interaction with cigarettes.
Imperial Tobacco, the cigarette company that makes Zonic pouches, will have 6 months to pull all advertising that could appeal to youth and to change its packaging to include a warning label. Health advocates say that can't come soon enough.
The fall term in school is very important with respect to the norms that are set by kids and the introduction of new products, whether it's fidget spinners or vaping products or nicotine pouches.
Imperial says its products aren't meant for anyone under the age of 18 and tells stores to check ID. But until now, selling the pouches to kids was legal. That's because Health Canada approved Zonic to help adults quit cigarettes. The health minister has accused Imperial of using that as a loophole.
We were duped. Unfortunately, sometimes you get duped.
As Ottawa clamps down, community groups have scrambled to stop another nicotine product from addicting the next generation.
As a young person, you might not be able to differentiate exactly what it is. And you might just think that, oh, this product looks cool, like, let me try it out.
Researchers say governments need to get more nimble to better keep up with big tobacco.
We need to get past this period where the industry throws out products and we're blind until a year or two later when we say, oh, it's okay or it's not okay.
What's not clear is how many teens experimented with the pouches in the year they were readily available. Ottawa isn't tracking that. Health Canada did away with surveys dedicated to nicotine use within the last few years, just as vaping was taking off and pouches hit the market. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
6 years since it opened, the Borden Natural Swimming Pool remains a summer hotspot in Edmonton. But microbiologists are concerned that too many swimmers may be putting the facility under strain. Wallace Snowden has more.
Borden Natural Swimming Pool is the only of its kind in Canada. It relies on plants, zooplankton, and granite, not chlorine, to filter its water. But things are different this summer. The kids' pool has been closed down due to contamination twice, and the water is now a browner hue due to a spike in algae growth that's making things slick.
It was okay once you got used to it. Yeah, just slimy at first, but then it was good.
Public health researchers who studied Borden before it opened called on the city to allow no more than 45 people in the pool per day. The city allows up to 980. The researchers had spiked the water with a cocktail of substances designed to mimic waterborne pathogens and found the pool was slow to filter them out.
We estimated that it would take more than 24 hours after a heavy load of people in the pool to clear the pool down to what we consider a safe level, which is set by the US Environmental Protection Agency, which is not a zero risk. It's 35 illnesses per 1,000 swimming events.
The city says current capacity limits are well in line with what Borden was designed for, and that the pool routinely operates well below that daily cap. There are no provincial regulations dictating what capacity is okay. The absence of chemicals means Borden is regulated just like a beach, a point of concern for some germ experts.
Remember, it's not a beach. A river continually flows. A lake continually cycles. A pool only cycles what's going through the filtration system. So always remember, it's an enclosed space. It is not a fully open water system.
The city says the pool is tested weekly and that it's working to improve filtration. Microbiologists, meanwhile, are calling for more stringent daily testing for further research to determine if the pool is safely handling bigger crowds and for testing results to be made public so Edmontonians can decide when and where they're willing to take a dip. Wallace Snowden, CBC News, Edmonton.
An Edmonton couple was expecting to have a second baby, but what they got was 4. The Watson quadruplets are now 7 weeks old. Travis McEwen met up with the family today to find out how life is with 4 newborns.
For the Watsons, one baby was what they wanted, but what they got was a second, third, and a fourth.
This is Theo at the end. We've got Kenna here next. This is Max, and I have Sydney.
After an early ultrasound, the couple was quite shocked to find out Tara was going to have quadruplets.
In that moment, it was extremely fearful. It was extremely scary. We had so many questions immediately running through our head, and immediately we knew it was going to be a high-risk pregnancy. And I just wish that we could go back and tell ourselves back then that it was going to be okay.
The foursome were born 7 weeks ago, nearly 2 months premature.
The first time I held all 4, and Tara held all 4. It was just surreal. Come here.
Along with the newborns is big sister, 2-year-old Emmy Lou. Juggling 4 babies and a toddler, along with a couple dogs, well, Tara Watson has figured out a routine in the meantime.
Right now, we are living in kind of 4-hour cycles over and over again. We start with diaper changes, then feeding. Feeding takes a while, burping, changing, some more diaper changes, and then a nap. So nap for them, not always us. And then it repeats over and over and over again. So living a little bit in Groundhog Day, but I know it's short-lived.
The family goes through 50 diapers per day. That involves a lot of clothing changes and laundry as well. The Watsons have received help from friends and family to assist with some baby duties. And people they don't know are even pitching in with a GoFundMe to cover diapers, formula, and other costs.
We knew that this was going to be a massive undertaking emotionally and physically and financially, and it's just been so incredible to know that people have been able to help us in ways that we wouldn't have had the means to do alone.
The family's in the process of finding a nanny to help with around-the-clock care. For now, they'll continue their 4-hour cycle they've relied on for the last couple of months. Travis McEwen, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, the number of e-scooter injuries in Alberta is surging. That's according to fresh data from Alberta Health Services. This year alone, there have been more than 700 injuries, and that's only to the end of June. AHS found that more than 2,200 Albertans visited ERs and urgent care centers for e-scooter related injuries last year. That's up 21% from the year before. What's also concerning for doctors is each year, hundreds of kids and teenagers are getting hurt. More than 450 injuries recorded last year were for people under the age of 18. Dozens of schools in Alberta will be piloting the province's new draft K-6 social studies curriculum this fall. That number is significantly higher than the first go-round 2 years ago. That's when only 7 private schools signed up. Joe Horwood has more.
After more than 8 months of consultation, Education Minister Demetrius Nicolaides is happy to see 62 school districts on board with the pilot, including 1 First Nations and 2 Francophone authorities. He says that having a broad sample of students tested out will help make it stronger. But this time, the province is giving educators the choice of which units they'll pilot.
You might get more people agreeing to do this if they feel like they have a little bit of a choice with what they're teaching. However, it's a good point that, you know, we don't teach some units of a curriculum and not teach other units when we're teaching in the program of studies. We teach the whole thing.
Hamilton says it will be important for the province to listen to feedback, especially if some units are being left largely untested by teachers who don't want to pilot them. And Nicolaides says they plan to have those opportunities available, but he's confident that there should only be minor tweaks.
Maybe there needs to be a little bit more added in here to strengthen this a particular subject, or this area is a little bit too rich and maybe we need to scale it back a bit. But those would be kind of the adjustments I would expect to see, not, oh, we're missing an entire unit on a particular area. We should have covered our bases in that regard at this point.
The Calgary Board of Education and Calgary Catholic School District are among the school authorities piloting the draft curriculum this fall. The CBE says it's opting out of piloting grades 4 to 6 as that isn't being implemented until 2026. More than 60 CBE teachers are interested in testing out the K-3 material this year. Jo Horwood, CBC News, Calgary.
A University of Alberta researcher unlocking the mysteries of Mars by pinpointing the origins of Martian meteors. Still to come, how he's able to trace these space rocks back to their otherworldly origins. That's up next. A University of Alberta researcher is able to pinpoint the origin of Martian meteorites that have landed on Earth, which could be important in learning more about Mars. Chris Hurd is a professor in the Faculty of Science and the curator of the U of A's meteorite collection. He joined Edmonton AM's Mark Connolly to explain how he's able to nail down the out-of-this-world locations.
How do you know these are from Mars?
Well, originally they were kind of an oddball group back in the day. In the 80s, there were sort of a handful of these meteorites. Now we have 200. Somebody had the bright idea to look to see what kind of gas might be trapped inside these rocks. And it turns out that gas matches the Martian atmosphere, and we know that from the Viking landers that sort of landed and didn't send anything back, but they analyzed the data.
Right.
So it's a one-to-one match. So that's a fingerprint for these rocks being from Mars, and then the rest are sort of linked to them by chemistry.
So how do these meteorites end up on Earth?
Something has to hit the surface of Mars. It's the sort of thing where they originally said it couldn't be done, but then that sort of chemical fingerprint was discovered, and then the physics had to be worked out. So the models now tell us that some asteroid, probably from the nearby asteroid belt, has to hit the surface of Mars and explode, make an impact crater.
Right.
But near the point of impact, rocks right near the surface get kicked off. They get blasted off the surface, accelerated fast enough to leave Mars' gravity.
So it chips a piece of the planet off.
Yeah.
And off it goes, yeah.
Yeah. So we think this has happened about 10 times total in recent history, in the last few million years, to
recent history, says Chris.
Well, it's recent. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the rocks themselves are much older. So, the last few million years, we've had sort of 10 events that have produced these 200 meteorites.
Okay. Now, you brought these with you. These are kind of cool. These are kind of little slices of them, right?
That's right.
So can you describe these for our listeners? What do we see?
Sure. I mean, they're not a whole lot to look at. I mean, the Martian meteorites predominantly are lava flows. So think of, Hawaii or someplace like that, where you have a lava flow down the side of a volcano. And so there's fairly small crystals in them, et cetera. But the other thing that we have in there are these little veins and little black pockets and things like that.
Right.
That's from the shock basically that they experienced when they got ejected from Mars.
I see.
And so that's a key part to this whole story, is actually figuring out what are the conditions of that shock ejection that allows us to link it to a specific crater.
Yeah, so you have determined exactly where on Mars this came from. How did you pinpoint that?
It's been a long process. I started 7 years ago.
Not millions of years. Oh,
no, but long still. But it's a process that involved a lot of colleagues from around the world, because what we basically said is okay, you've got 10. We're looking for something like 10 craters in the last few million years. So you're looking for nice fresh craters, relatively recently formed apparently on Mars from remote sensing.
Right.
But there's hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's millions of craters. So there's sort of hundreds of possibilities. Then we say, well, let's narrow it down to those places where there's lava flows. Like Tharsis and Elysium are the big igneous places on Mars.
Yeah.
And then narrow it down further and further. And then with some sort of updated physical modeling, we can narrow it down further. So it's sort of like a process of elimination. Mm-hmm. And what we did was we ended up with 15 potential craters for these 10 events.
That narrows it down pretty good.
Yeah, and so then we could go from a specific information in a meteorite like that to the specific conditions and ages, et cetera, of the crater and the surrounding area that the crater sits on. Mm-hmm. And we've been able to do that for 5 of them. Our study shows that we've been able to do that linkage for 5. So we're we're halfway there, essentially,
right,
to figuring out where all of the Martian meteorites come from.
Pretty fascinating stuff. If you'd like to watch an extended version of that interview, you can head to our website. Well, it's looking like a gorgeous night out there, but the warm temperatures could be giving way to some showers on the way. Stay with us for your full forecast straight ahead. '27 in Edmonton tonight for the Metallica concert. Some rain is going to hit us in the overnight hours, but that'll be much later when they're not on stage. Nice and warm in Calgary and Medicine Hat as well. This temperature, kind of the heat wave, is going to be lasting throughout the week. But what we're going to be seeing is a little bit of precipitation. As you can see, it's going to start in the overnight hours and it's going to continue through to the morning. We're going to be seeing some more rain again in the evening tomorrow. Now, on Tuesday, Wednesday, that's the second kind of bout of rain that we're going to be receiving. But enjoy the weekend. It's going to be nice and warm and lots of sun. Metallica plays again with Five Finger Death Punch on Sunday. It looks like they're going to be able to escape that rain, so very nice. An iconic festival in our city is asking for help.
We set a goal of raising $300,000 by the end of this year's festival. Today, we just crested $210,000. But truly, we are coming to our community to say we're not done yet. Let's go, Edmonton. We got a couple days left of the festival yet. We truly believe that we can hit that $300,000 mark by the end of this weekend. So if we don't reach that $300,000 goal this year, the reality is we will be looking at scaling back festival activity next year and probably for very many years to come.
According to the festival, Fringe Theatre brings more than $16 million in economic impact for Old Strathcona and the greater Edmonton area every year. More than 500,000 people visit each year. Well, your next newscast is at 11 tonight with Alicia. For now, we're going to leave you with some sights of Treaty 6 flag raising just outside of our studios. Have a great night. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.